Hi, everyone. We're back again with a person you might have heard his voice, but this is KevMo, also the creator of the fantastic podcast, Contested Realm, right? Or I think it's
All things
All
contested
Things
on
Contested
there.
Realm. There we go. How are you doing, dude?
Good. I've been okay. Enjoying a day off today. One of those rare
Nice.
days that I don't have any podcast related things planned. So yeah, doing fantastic today. It's my Sunday. How about you?
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I'm doing good. Just got off of work. I'm glad that we could get you on and get you talking about sorcery. I know you're a huge proponent of it, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to talking to you about it.
I'm kind of into it a little bit.
Just a
A
little,
small interest.
just a
Yeah.
little bit.
No, thank you for
Awesome.
having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So let's just talk a little bit to begin with about the podcast and kind of what you want to do with it, and like overall, and kind of what the theme of it, if you have a theme.
Yeah, definitely. So basically, what got me started into it in the first place was I was a very big Magic the Gathering player. I've been playing Magic and basically card games in general for years now. I started with Pokemon and eventually moved over to Yu-Gi-Oh. Played some smaller ones here and there. I was one of those people who really tried to get into like Digimon back in the day and stuff like that. But basically been really big into Magic the Gathering. I love playing the competitive scene a little bit with Modern.
Nice.
I tried doing Standard early on when Standard was a little easier to keep up with, and then started getting really big into Commander. So I've been really big into Magic and games like that. So I started listening to like Magic podcasts, back in the day, and I always loved the idea of starting a podcast or some sort of YouTube channel, but with Magic, because it's been around for so long, it just felt very saturated with people who have been doing this same thing for far longer than I have. And I didn't really want to get caught up in being a small fish amongst a bunch of large whales. But once sorcery became a thing, I think I found out about sorcery a little past the Kickstarter, definitely past the Kickstarter. But when I found out about it, there hadn't really been, too many content creators out there. There were a handful here and there, some of the early backers and stuff like that, but no podcasts. So I thought that would be a really cool idea, and honestly, I kind of just wanted something that even I could just put on the background. And I know it's kind of weird to say, I listen to my own stuff here and there, but I've kind of said this before. When I'm recording, I put so much time into recording and editing and stuff like that. I almost disassociate myself sometimes with exactly what I'm talking about, and so I'll put it on in the background after I publish an episode, and that allows me to kind of connect a little bit with the stuff that I put out in the first place, as well as kind of critique my own stuff here and there, figure out what I want to do later. So it started with just something where I was like, hey, there's nothing out there. I could be one of the first people to do something like this. Um, it would be fun to just have something to listen to, even if it's just myself,
Yeah.
and just kind of pass the time. So I started that up, and I had no expectation of anybody, even listening or following. So I figured if it's something that even I myself would want to listen to, then hopefully other people will too. And it caught on enough to where people started enjoying it and leaving me good feedback. And I really started seeing this this thing just grow, organically from that. And it got to the point where I'm like, well, now I can't not do it because
Right.
there's just so much fun stuff to talk about. So that's really where it came from, why I got it started. Um, as far as what I want to do with it, I just want to keep, talking about, it covers a broad spectrum of everything. It covers, anything from talking about decks to, I love keeping people up to date with all the news and all the articles. Sometimes those people don't have enough time to click on all these different things and read these things, but somehow I
Right.
find the time to do it. And it's just nice to keep everybody informed in one central hub of a place for people to come and listen to and catch up with all that stuff. So I kind of just want to just be that spot for you to come to for all the updates, general information, news, and just fun topics, just talking about this game that we all love.
Yeah. I was listening to the Dust one today that you dropped, and
Oh, thanks.
yeah, it was really good. I haven't had time to finish it, so no
Hmm.
spoilers. But yeah, so you're a big fan of, correct me if I'm wrong, but Battle Mage and Spark Mage are like your two.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
gotcha.
Definitely. I'm definitely a fan of a few more others, but I'd say my earliest ones that I started getting big into was definitely Battle Mage, Spark Mage, and Death Speaker. Those were probably my top three
Okay,
that
gotcha.
I started with. Yeah.
So why specifically those three that you're kind of like, is this like something from Magic, or is it just kind of
Um,
like,
I,
I really like this art, I gotta put something together for this guy?
well, the art is definitely, definitely has a lot to do with it for sure. But I'd say more of the archetypes that you kind of build around those. In Magic, I loved the fact that you had the freedom to build, whatever archetype you wanted. There were so many possibilities.
Right.
And in Sorcery, we're still pretty limited because of the mechanics that are available on what archetypes we can really build around. And you see little hints here and there of like, this could be an archetype if we had more
Right.
support for this and that. But it just takes a handful of more cards or a couple more sets before you can really make something. So I'd say Battle Mage, I really liked. In Magic, I really love like aggressive decks. I have a couple of they're they're kind of red aggro decks, but
Yeah.
it's more of the prowess mechanic if you're
Okay.
familiar with prowess. So, but it's just kind of aggro in your face, which is kind of what Battle Mage is.
Hmm.
I also love more ways to draw cards because who doesn't?
Absolutely.
Uh, as far as the Death Speaker, I really love the synergy that you get with a lot of like self-sacrifice archetypes that you find. There's a
Hmm.
lot of Magic decks that you can build around sacrificing your own things. So Death Speaker kind of goes along with that. You can either use it aggressively, defensively, to where you're not caring about those things dying, but it's only going to take maybe one more set before we really get a cool sacrifice
Right.
synergy or discard synergy or something like that.
Right.
Um, so I really like him. And then Spark Mage is just such a fun one because Spark Mage is one of the few that you kind of have to play monocolor.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. And I really like the idea that it's, I guess the Magic equivalent would be the, what do you call it? I'm thinking, you try to,
You're freezing.
you try to separate the terms between Magic and Sorcery so much that sometimes you
Right.
forget about those. But your devotion,
Okay.
that's what it
Gotcha.
is. So Magic has devotion, and in Sorcery, that kind of you see that more so with Spark Mage, where it cares about how many of these thresholds in these spells you're playing, and that's kind
Hmm.
of similar to that devotion mechanic there. So I love Spark Mage because it's all about just how many things you can play at once, how much you can get in their face, and it's
Gotcha.
just such an interesting mechanic that kind of drew me to it. Plus the whole electricity and moving
Yeah.
around. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
It's very
Who
thematic.
doesn't like lightning, right?
Yeah, there you go. So I definitely connected with that one, and I feel like not a whole lot of players really knew how to play Spark Mage or really connected with that one when the beta
Hmm.
avatars dropped because it was kind of admittedly one of the weaker beta avatar decks to play out of the box. But then talking with, and I got to give my buddy Justin, aka Metroid Pikmin, a shout out
Yeah.
here because he was one of the early players of Spark Mage, and so we really connected over the Spark Mage decks, and he helped me to become a better Spark Mage player. Just
Nice.
playing with him and talking with him. So that's why I like those three. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. I think it says it from the name of the YouTube channel, but I'm a huge fan of Sorcerer. I have the poster
Yeah.
here. Like it's
Yeah. I saw that. Yeah.
I'm the guy that's like, give me vanilla ice cream so I can make
Hmm.
it how I want, right?
Hmm.
I just need that base of ice cream, and then I can
Hmm.
kind of make it how I want after that, right? If I'm chocolate,
Yeah.
I have to stay with chocolate, but if it's
Yeah.
but then, I
Sorcerer.
can make chocolate out of vanilla.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. No, Sorcerer is really good just to stick in pretty much anything. I mean, he is great to just build all these different archetypes that don't really necessarily center around a specific avatar and how you have to build it. So Sorcerer is just great, out the
Right.
box. I mean,
I
great
and
avatar.
that, I think I'm too much of a sorcerer man or a fan of at this point because
Is that?
I'm like
Can you
sitting
even
here.
be too much of a sorcerer? Like,
Well, like so I feel like when I play like decks that aren't sorcerer, I'm like, man, I'm missing this card draw. And also like, wouldn't it just be better with sorcerer? Like what am I doing not playing sorcerer now?
hmm
Like one of the only like I think one of the decks that has piqued my interest recently has been the Geomancer deck that's been going around,
hmm
where it's like that ramp and you get like those big minions
hmm
and that like like roots of
Yeah.
Yggdrasil with the
Oh,
sinkhole
those
and
roots
the
decks.
crater eyes.
Yeah.
I'm like, dang, that seems pretty powerful. Just
Yeah.
it seems like the first true control deck we're kind of seeing in the meta
hmm
besides Death Speaker, who's kind of doing things like Death Dealer twice or
hmm
other things like that, where like Fate Changeling. So I'll be honest, I've tried Battle Mage and I've tried Spark Mage. Every time I play Spark Mage, locally, like I have a good local group. We have like 8 to 10 players that we
Oh,
play
cool.
locally every Friday,
hmm
and every time I play it locally, like in person, like at the table, I can't find blinks and I can't find teleports. They just don't exist anymore. And I'm like, what is going on here? Then I go online, I play it on TTS. I'm like, this is a great deck. Like I can
hmm
play it. I get the teleports, I get the blinks, I can get to where I need to go with it. In person, I'm just cursed. I just can't
That
do
that real
it.
life random factor is just not
Yeah,
as
I don't
nice
know
as the.
why.
um,
Yeah,
yeah,
with
one thing I
battle.
was.
Yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. Oh, I was going to say real quick, going back on before we get too far off of Geomancer. One thing
Yeah.
I liked about Geomancer, I haven't really played Geomancer, admittedly, too much, but I do like the fact that it feels similar to Pathfinder a little bit on
Hmm.
how it can ramp. Definitely not the same thing,
Yeah.
but it gives you that ability to put multiples of those sites in there. I
Right.
feel like once we get more sites in the library that we can choose from, we might actually see more like mono colored Pathfinder decks, and that'll start
Hmm.
competing with those Geomancer decks. So Geomancer
Right.
definitely has a little bit of an edge on being able to put whatever sites you want in there and as many of them as you want.
Yeah. One thing I found really interesting with at least the Geomancer deck, there's a YouTube channel called Mirrors of the Realm. They did a
Mm-hmm.
2 hour long video, which admittedly I've watched way too many times and have spent too many hours like going over each card as they're explaining it and like, okay, yeah, I understand. I get that. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Um, they do a great job like kind of explaining it and stuff, and they kind of apparently like the guy who runs Mirror Realm and then his like
Mm-hmm.
playtest partner kind of built the deck together.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really interesting like the kind of interactions they had. And one thing that I don't know if they specifically said in it, again, it's 2 hours, so they might have gone over it, but the sites and how they actually do like villages and how they
Uh-huh.
use those kind of as like, well, if you have a foot soldier, it's one free block. And because
Mm-hmm.
we're living in a world of like 2 for 3s or 3 for 3s is like main drops now, that you're doing as much as a holy ground for a village. And
Mm-hmm.
the thing that kind of interests me is a lot of people are playing Atlantean Fate now.
Mm-hmm.
And, having those villages as like your main piece instead of those more exotic sites
Mm-hmm.
makes it so you don't actually do a lot with the Atlantean Fate because, it doesn't affect those ordinary sites. So I found that really interesting.
Yeah, it's
Um,
definitely cool seeing as the meta changes here and there. Like you said, Atlantean Fate, it wasn't really being played a whole lot outside of a couple decks, and now all of a sudden people are like, oh wow, that's really good. And then
yeah,
you start seeing,
yeah, Rudosaurus has it in his
oh my
Earth,
gosh,
Water,
yeah.
Fire deck that he's toting around, which it seems very fun, and I've played it a
Mhm.
couple of times, and I'm like, hey, it's Sorcerer, I'm gonna try it out.
Yeah.
But you got this Spark Mage deck, and
hmm
if we're gonna go over to it right now, Let me pull it up on my
And just
elevator
to
thing.
remind the people, this is my I have a public deck, and then I kind of have a more aggressive private deck that I like keeping to
Yeah,
myself just in
yeah,
case. But this one at least is a public. I'll mention a couple changes here and there for the private,
gotcha.
but it's more just some small changes to make it feel a little bit faster and more competitive.
So with the Spark Mage, you get the classic Avatar 20 for one, pretty basic for most of the avatars besides Battle Mage.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the tap player draw a sight, which is common across all avatars, besides that unique Pathfinder there. The thing that kind of makes it stand apart is that second ability of tap target nearby location, deal damage to another random unit there equal to the sum of the air threshold on spells you've cast this turn.
Mm-hmm.
And looking through the list just on there's a lot of two threshold ones and not a
Mm-hmm.
lot of ones. I'm assuming those ones are pivotal in specific ways, but before we get to those ones, let's just kind of go down the list. We'll go to auras, then we'll go to artifacts, minions, and we'll just kind of go down that way.
Of course.
So, starting with the auras, we got the classic thunderstorm here.
It's basically one aura. That's all you need.
Yeah.
Yeah, Thunderstorm is just too good. I mean, we're kind of limited on what we have aura wise. We don't really have too many auras in the game in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, we have a really good one in air. So the big thing that you want to remember about Spark Mage is it cares about the threshold on things. So most of the time, most of the things that we have in this deck are going to want to be at least 2 threshold or more in order to really gain the most benefit from that.
Mm-hmm.
So Thunderstorm not only is a 2 threshold aura, but it does a lot of things with it. You can get a maximum of 9 damage out of one of these things. Um, Another thing you want to keep in mind with Spark Mage is we want to keep the mana costs really, really low, because most of the time we don't want to have to spend more than I think Thunderstorm, I think, is the most expensive thing in here besides Chaos Twister. We're maxing out on 4 mana basically for anything that we want to play. So Thunderstorm kind of checks all those boxes on what we want in this deck. We want something that is low mana cost. We want something with at least 2 thresholds, and we want something that's just going to get damage in and be hard to deal with. So Thunderstorm is just all around the best aura you can have in this deck.
I like that it also moves. It's not necessarily a
Mm-hmm.
stationary thing that at the end of the turn, after it's done the damage, you can then move it
Mm-hmm.
somewhere. And because of how auras work, that's a big amount of movement that
Big
you can
thing.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Thunderstorm is the only aura that lets you move it as it's on the field. Which, yeah, like you said, when you play Thunderstorm, the biggest thing they want to do is move out of the way so they don't get hit or
Hmm.
drop minions in the way. So yeah, Thunderstorm being able to move at the end of its effect is huge because you can either move it to damage something if they move their avatar to run away, you can move it to follow them. You can move it ahead of where they're going to be to kind of block them from moving to certain places and kind of lock them out of being able to move into certain places. Admittedly, the movement part of that ability is often the most forgotten about. I myself even forget sometimes that, like, oh yeah, I can move it at the end of that,
Right.
and then it's not until their turn that they move, and I'm like, I was supposed to move it there. But yeah, definitely an important part of that order to keep track of.
Right. So with air, we kind of have a lot of random effects that kind of happen in air as
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of, I think that's part of what air, as it's kind of one of its core philosophies, is like that randomization, that like changing of the winds and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of mitigate that with the next two cards in the list with Kythera Mechanism and Lucky Charm. I'm assuming Lucky Charm's in the list just to kind of hedge your bets if you can't find Kythera.
Yeah, well, it plays a couple different roles. One, Lucky Charm and Kythera are both having to do with, like you said, manipulating this random effect.
Hmm.
While Lucky Charm is not quite as good as Kythera, Kythera is a unique, so you only get one of in the deck. And because Kythera gives you full control over random outcomes, it's going to be highly targeted by removal. And so Lucky Charm just kind of plays as a backup for that, so that, if you do happen to play your Kythera out, and keep in mind, when you do play your Kythera, you don't want to just play it anytime you have an extra mana to drop it. Because if you're dropping and you have nothing to do with it, you're just inviting the opponent to get rid of your best card you have in your deck, or one of the best ones. Now, because Kythera is only 1 mana, you really have a lot of room to drop this out when it is going to be the most beneficial for you. So you drop this out before you play, a couple of things that deal with that random, Raise Dead, or um, Thunderstorm or something like that. Especially in a finishing move. If end of game they're on death's door and you can drop a Thunderstorm and a Kythera and win, that's really going to come in handy there. So Kythera is a big part of this one. Lucky Charm is basically a backup. It's fetchable with Princess because it's a 1 mana card. So if your Kythera mechanism gets buried or banished, and you still have your Princess in your hand, you can search for a Lucky Charm. And while it's not as good, it does help you, try for another chance at getting that random outcome. So it's just kind of a redundancy, a backup contingency plan, so to speak.
Gotcha.
And if you really have, if they're on death's door and you really need that final blow, you can drop a couple of them, and then all of a sudden now you get multiple chances to get that in there. So I keep 2 Lucky Charms in there just because I feel like having 3 effects to control random outcomes is going to be very beneficial to you in this deck.
Right, and Lucky Charm does stack, right? You roll them
Mm-hmm.
3 times instead of twice, so
Mm-hmm.
that
Or
can also
flip,
help.
or
Right, that can
yeah.
also help with like the game plan of like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, if I can't find Kythera, at least I can kind of hedge my bets if I can find
a,
both.
a pseudo way of controlling that random outcome. Yeah.
Right, and then Mix Air with this was something that I found interesting. You have Mix Air in here, but you don't have the core in here.
Mm-hmm.
Why the switch up?
So cores are really good, just to get you that mana and that threshold. But in this deck, because you're generally keeping your mana costs really, really low, uh, the core is, at least in my experience, and I've kind of, a lot of these ideas I've thrown back and forth with Justin too. So
Right.
he's kind of helped me with these as well. But we found that the core is really good in decks where you want to get big mana stuff out there. And a core is not really going to do too much for you, um, as far as casting your spells that are going to be 2 mana, 3 mana, 4 mana. It can help you with that small little mana boost in the very beginning if you're on turn, 1 or 2 to do something. But if you're, halfway through your game and you don't really need that extra mana, pulling a core is just going to kind of be a missed opportunity to pull a lightning bolt or a
Right.
Kythera mechanism or something like that. So you don't really need a core in this deck as much as you would other decks. However, the mix, I do have the mixes in this public deck. I think I let's see, let's double check. I think I took them out of my my other deck just because. Oh no, I kept one in there. So
Okay.
I think in the public one I have 2, right? Yeah.
Yes, you have two.
So I went down the one in my other deck. Mix is just great for a couple of reasons here. So we we have some, like I said, the average cost of the spells you want to cast is usually about 2 or 3. We do have some 4s. And the one thing to keep in mind with Mix is it says requires no threshold and costs 3 less to cast.
Mm-hmm.
So it does give you that casting trigger off of using a Mix. So Mix is great for getting a little bit of a boost in, things that you're playing. Sometimes it can help you get that one extra spell in that you need to get to, get that final blow. So, for example, if you have 5 mana, usually with Spark Mage, I'll probably stop after my 5th sight, just because 5 sights in, you have 5 mana, and you can play something. You can play 2 things with 2 cost. You can play a 3 and a 2. You can play one of your 4s and a mix. So if you play a mix, that's 1 mana. You play something like 2 blinks. Now you're at 5 mana, and now you can still crack your mix and play another, 2 or 3 mana thing. So it kind of gives you that boost of some free mana once in a while, and I dropped it down to 1 in my other deck just because there were some times where I pulled my second mix and I really didn't need it, and it could have been, some damage spell or something like that. So, but mix is really, really good just for that mana boost, and getting you that one extra spell in a turn that might give you that edge, getting a little bit ahead of the opponent.
Gotcha. And then Poisonous Dagger. I don't think if you're kind of new to the game or don't understand like certain interactions, at least I didn't realize that putting a Poisonous Dagger on Spark Mage actually is a really good thing.
Yeah. So with air, we don't have a lot of removal. Earth and fire are the best elements with removal in the game. Air does not really have removal outside of, is it disenchant? I always forget dispel and disenchant. Which one's the air one?
Disenchant's the one
That's
that
right in front of me.
yeah, it's air.
Yeah. So outside of that, and that's only for removing a couple things. Otherwise, air just has a lot of damage, and even then, it's randomized damage. So Poisonous Dagger, for those like you said who don't know, Poisonous Dagger gives the bearer lethal, and because Spark Mage says that Spark Mage is doing the damage, that lets lethal actually be a thing that you can do. It actually counts the damage as lethal because it's coming from Spark Mage himself. So by putting a Poisonous Dagger on him, now all of a sudden all of your damage spells that are, not your damage spells, but anytime you use Spark Mage's ability, you can potentially get rid of things that are really, really big on the field or problematic. And so it kind of gives a pseudo way of adding some removal into a mono air deck. So great card. Another one that you definitely don't want to put out too early. You want to save it for when you're going to need that lethal, because the two highest targeted cards for removal in this game are going to be Kythera and Poisonous Dagger for sure.
Gotcha. So we got 12 minions in total in this, at least the public deck. We got 2 Cloud Spirit, 1 Grim Reaper, 1 Highland Princess, 2 Wind Sylph, 2 Apprentice Wizard, 2 Headless Haunt, and 2 Grandmaster Wizard. So why the Grandmaster? I know why the Grandmaster Wizard. Like, I know that it's because of the 3 draw, but why, when your curve is so low for, like, I guess mana in general, or your curve for like most of your cards are like 2s or 3 drops, and you have a couple 4s. Why go trying to get to that 6 with Grandmaster?
Well, keep in mind, this is the public one. I put Grandmaster in there because he's just fun when you can get him out. You are going to need a mix usually to get him out, unless you decide to, put a 6th side out. If you don't have anything else in your turn to do, and you decide to tap your avatar to, draw a sight, and then next turn you can afford to play a sight and get up to that 6th. Now you can all of a sudden just play a Grandmaster whenever you get him, or if you already have him. Grandmaster, just drawing 3 spells is going to be huge in this deck, because you're going to want more things in your hand, because the more things you have in your hand, the more things you can play in the same turn and get that threshold up. So Grandmaster, usually I would pop off a mix to get him out. That's kind of a hard thing to time right. So like I said, this is kind of my more casual play deck. In my more competitive play deck, I did take out the Grandmasters just because sometimes, more often than not, especially more so in the competitive scene, it was just too slow of a thing. But on a more casual level, he's just drawing 3 spells. He's getting another spellcaster out there. He's getting a body to block your sights. So it is a little bit of work to get him out there, but when you get him out, you could draw 3 spells and have 3 more things you can do with your Spark Mage on your turn. Well worth it.
Gotcha. Cloud Spirit is 2 for 2 with an insane amount of movement.
Cloud Spirit, he at first started because he's just a 2 mana minion. He has the 2 threshold cost.
Right.
So again, you're trying to get things with at least the 2 threshold. But he became even better after the latest rulebook update, which allowed defenders to use their movement plus abilities in order to defend things. So yeah, Cloud Spirit is not only a way to get that threshold count up, it gets you a cheap body on the field. You can use him for attacking because people don't often remember those movement buff abilities. So, him being able to move, and he's got airborne, so he can move diagonally
Yeah.
3 spaces. So you can cover almost the whole board, hit
Yeah.
a site for 2, and that could be, a deciding factor. But now that he can also defend from 3 spaces away too, one of the things that you find in the Spark Mage builds are that you're kind of concentrating so much on the aggressive side that you aren't always wanting to play defensively, or sometimes you can't because you want all of your stuff to attack them as much as you can. So Cloud Spirit is just a great way of defending your sites, being able to move almost anywhere on the board.
Gotcha. And then Grim Reaper, I'm assuming, is just that I want to get
Grim,
rid of this in
Grim
your
Reaper is just
deck.
Grim Reaper, man. I mean, he's 2 mana, low cost. He's 2 air threshold, so he does a
Right.
thing. But also, I mean, everybody knows Grim Reaper by now, so he's just great to have in there
Yeah,
to help
he's
deal with.
scary
Against
dude.
Net Speaker, gets rid of the imps. Against all these other decks that rely a lot on these. You have the Earth Fire aggro, gets rid of giants, gets rid of root spiders.
Right.
Anything. So just in there to be a great. Even just sticking him on your sites as a defender because now they don't want to have their stuff banished. So Grim Reaper, he's just in there because he's awesome.
Right. Dude, I will not forget the time my wife likes building like wolf decks. And
Oh, no.
the first time that a Grim Reaper grapple shotted into one of her wolves, and she like put I think like 24 wolves or something into her deck, and it was like she looks over at me, she's like, "That's a card," and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's a card." And she's like, "You should have told me about that."
She started getting those divorce papers ready, man.
It was not good.
Yeah, Grim Reaper is definitely an enemy of the wolf decks, but Too Fluent, who is a big wolf player, he said he's had good luck even winning around that. So definitely not a complete game loss, but it will definitely set
It
you
hurts.
back.
It definitely hurts.
Yeah. Your wife learned the hard way.
Yeah,
what
she did.
Grim Reaper is. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got Highland Princess. I think most people know this card by now. Two threshold, 1 attack, but that Genesis ability is like the reason.
Yeah, she again low cost minion to have a body out there. She's got the double threshold, so it's going to help out your Spark Mage, but yeah, it's going to fetch your artifacts. So, like I said, the biggest things are your Kythera and your Lucky Charms, but it can also fetch you your mix if you just need to put your mix out there and get that little bit of mana boost. So, just a fetch card.
I'm assuming you would wish that Poison Dagger was a one cost to be able to hunt that.
It would be too broken if it was a 1, yeah.
Yeah.
Being able to fetch a Poison Dagger with Highland Princess would just be, chef's
It'd be
kiss.
pretty brutal. So Windself, this was also one that I think you said you had taken out of your competitive deck, but why even kind of, what was the thought process behind it to begin with?
So it's in this deck because again, 2 mana minion, double air threshold, so it's a way to help power your Spark Mage. She is a spellcaster as well, so the more spellcasters you have out there to be able to cast these things, it's just great. In this deck, it doesn't necessarily matter too much, but because the magnetic muzzle combo is a thing, it's definitely great to have extra spellcasters out there so that you can cast that artifact removal. But Windself was originally in there just because her movement buff that she has, it says after she casts a magic spell, you may push a unit here 1 step. So, like I said, I did take it out of the competitive deck because I didn't really. When Windself casts it, you're not having Spark Mage cast it, and so Spark Mage isn't getting the casting bonus off of the things you cast. At least for now, there's the developers have been chatting about possibly a update to that rule here in the upcoming near future, which will allow just anything to count towards Spark Mage's casting ability. But for now, at least, Windself was mostly in there, like I said, for the movement buff. If you happen to need to get your avatar out of a tough spot and Windself is there, you can sacrifice casting something and let her cast it in order to force move either your avatar out of the way, one of your other minions in a more ideal location, or you can move one of their minions or avatar into a more ideal location. So this deck does play free cities. So if you happen to get Windself out there and you cast like a lightning bolt with her, not only are you doing a damage spell, you can push one of their things, maybe into a free city or one of their bottomless pits or something like that. So it was just kind of a fun way to not only get a low cost minion with double threshold, but also a way of possibly utilizing some extra movement with her.
Gotcha. So you have Apprentice Wizard on top of the Grandmaster Wizard. You just can't help but draw
Those
cards,
wizards, man.
right?
Card draw, card draw, card draw. Yeah, we're very limited with card draw right now. So those Apprentice Wizards, they're only 1 air threshold, 3 cost, but yeah, it's going to give you a body out there. It's going to give you another spellcaster, and it's going to be a card draw. So mostly for the card draw and to just add a body. That one ping damage can make it a difference sometimes getting in on their site and just having another body to defend your sites while getting you that card draw. Until we get better card draw opportunities in air, the Wizards are going to be the way to go.
So did they meet the cut for the competitive deck?
They did. Yeah, I still have.
Okay,
I think
gotcha.
I dropped. I still have 2 in the other deck, just because you're going to want card draw in here because we're limited. It's still worth keeping a couple in there. Yeah.
So Headless Haunt. I've seen some crazy stuff recently with Headless Haunt. Why only 2?
Headless Haunt is a 3 cost, so he's a little bit more expensive than your other 2 costs.
Right.
And if you don't have your daggers or your mechanism out, he isn't quite as good as you want him to be. He still can be good, but because you have that random element to him, sometimes he can just move to a spot. So some people I've seen decks with 1 extra in there, but I, with my play testing, have really felt that having 2 in here is a nice balance. Because if you have the way to control his movement, he's just fantastic. If not, sometimes he's just a card that you can't do a for sure thing with. You can't control it. So, if you draw one and you would have rather drawn something else, that's kind of a feels bad. So, but 2 seems to be a really good balance. So that's why I stuck with 2 in here.
Gotcha. Let's see here. I was wondering why no Gyre Hippogriffs.
So Gyre Hippogriffs I actually did add into my competitive deck.
Gotcha.
I think no Gyre in this one just because the things that I do have in here were more synonymous with what the public deck wanted to try to do. It was just a little bit more fun. But yeah, I think for the more competitive deck, I took out those Windselfs and I did add in those Hippogriffs. And that's just because, the Hippogriffs, they are higher cost. So they are 4. So usually your, 4 mana can get you 2 Cloud Spirits, 4 Threshold. It can do 4 damage with Spark Mage.
Right.
But if you utilize Hippogriffs, you can get in that 3 damage with Hippogriffs off the charge and 2 with Spark Mage. So just difference in the decks that I was trying to do with this.
Seems pretty good. Pretty good.
He's in there in the competitive deck for sure, but this one was a little bit more fun, so was keeping it casual.
Gotcha. So Browse, Dream Quest, Blink, Chain Lightning, Disenchant, Lightning Bolt, Teleport, Chaos Twister, and Raise Dead. Is the Chaos Twister just because you want to have fun with the deck? Or does it have a spot?
Surprisingly, it has a spot. It's both. One, Chaos Twister is just a fun, depending on which side of the table you're on, it's a fun card to play.
So before we go any further, which side of the table are you on?
I usually play devil's advocate with this one. I'm kind of both. I play it because, like I said earlier, air is limited on what we have for removal. This is the best removal air has. It is a little bit higher cost, but you get something usually most of the time removed almost most of the time. So it's the best removal we have. But on the other side of that, I'm also not the biggest fan with that random mechanic. Well, it's not even random because it doesn't say random, so it doesn't work mechanism. So it is completely random at this point. I'm not a
Right.
fan of a non-controlled chaotic thing. It's also kind of a feels bad if someone might be more skilled at being able to blow that card off their hand than others.
Hmm.
So when we get better removal that fits in air, I'll probably swap this out if it can be a better removal piece than this. But until then, I mean, it's one of the best removals we have in air. Um, Again, it's a little bit higher cost. It's 4, but if they have like a mountain giant, if they have a hydra, if they have something that's problematic, 4 is going to be worth paying to at least get that out of there.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's there.
All right. So so with Spark Mage, you kind of want to be in their face, be able to do that damage with tapping him, but you don't want to move and have to tap him, right?
Hmm.
So with that being said, you got the 4 teleports and the 4 blinks. I'm
Hmm.
assuming the blinks, they're good to get closer, but also they get that card draw,
They
which
get the
is
card draw.
right.
They can move you. They can move you. Sometimes, you only have 4 rows, and being able to blink one row closer to them can
Hmm.
sometimes get you in that nearby range of Spark Mage. Like I said, it's 2 cost. It does at least get you 1 damage with Spark Mage, and it gives you that card draw. So yeah, it's worth
Pretty
keeping in there
good.
just for the movement, card draw, everything it does. And teleport, it's a little harder to cast because it's that double threshold, but being able to move anywhere in the realm off 2 mana and you get that 2 damage, I mean, you can't get better than teleport in this deck with what you're trying to do with Spark Mage.
Right. So Dream Quest, is it because you have the wizards and the spellcasters?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, you know what? It doesn't matter too much. I can just go find something.
Yeah, so Dream Quest, it's in this deck again, like you said, because I have the large number of spellcasters. I didn't include this in my more competitive deck because the competitive deck I did take out the Wind Selfs and the Grandmasters,
Hmm.
and it's not really keeping in there. It's not worth keeping in there if you only have the Apprentice Wizards. But because of this build, you have the Wind Sylphs, you have the Apprentice Wizards, and you have the Grandmaster Wizards. So being able to basically search for any card you want to off of one of those, it's going to benefit you if they let it go off because now you can have another opportunity to find whatever you need. And if you aren't able to get it off, it's going to cost them removal to have to get rid of the spellcaster that you cast Dream Quest on. So it is forcing them to use something in order to answer it. So sometimes that something would be the thing that they would have to use in order to get rid of one of your more problematic artifacts. So if they waste it on a uh, Dream Quested spellcaster, then they're not using it on your Kythera mechanism. So,
Gotcha.
mm-hmm.
All right. Browse. Probably the best card
uh,
in the deck for the
browse in
3
this deck.
threshold, right? You got so
Yes,
many good
yes.
things, right?
So yeah, 7 cards deep in a deck that you usually only have 40 cards in is almost a quarter of your deck to find whatever you want. You don't have to
Hmm.
reveal it, so total surprise there. And yeah, three thresholds. So on 1 mana, you can tap your Spark Mage and automatically do 3 damage. Dig 7 cards deep for what you want. It's just too good to not have in this deck. One of the best cards in
That's
this
right.
deck. Yeah.
Oh, dude, in my opinion, it's one of the best cards in the game.
Oh yeah,
It's so
yeah, for
good.
sure, definitely. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is a little hard to get out 3 threshold. You can't use it until at least turn 3. But even in turn 3, I mean, what are you gonna? You're not really doing too much 3 turns
Right.
in.
So I will
Um,
say, have you ever said screw it, play the mix, pop it, and then go do the browse for like turn 1, just for fun? It's just like, you know what?
um,
Screw it. I have it. We're gonna do it.
you know, I don't know that. I want to say I might have at least done it once in a casual game, but definitely not in a competitive game. But you
Right.
can. I mean, if you really really want
You
that
could do
card
it.
that bad. But I probably have done it when I really was in a pickle and I needed to get out of
Hmm.
a tough spot. Turn 1 is kind of hard to get yourself in a tough spot, but um, I think maybe a turn there's probably in at least one opportunity where turn 1 or turn 2. Um, I've probably used it. Yeah.
Gotcha. So Chain Lightning. This is a pretty interesting card.
Hmm.
So you
So,
get to do the couple targets, right?
mhm. So chain lightning is good in here because we are, even though it's air and air has a lot of ways of dealing damage, we are still limited on how many cards we do have that deal damage. So chain lightning is low cost, 2 mana. You can use it, that plus something else in a turn. It's got that 2 threshold, and it deals 2 damage on its own. It does have to be nearby, but because you're usually wanting to put your avatar nearby them, most of the time this does something.
Mm-hmm.
It has a target, and so for 2 mana, you do the 2 damage from this plus an additional 2 with your Spark Mage. So that's 4 damage that you can get off casting this. And if you have more mana to pump into this, you can potentially deal another 2 damage to something else that's nearby by chaining it along.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a great finisher move because if you, um, oftentimes they're going to want to try to run away from your avatar. So if they happen to run out of the nearby distance and you can't get your avatar close enough to them, and they're on death's door, and you have enough mana to possibly chain this off of 2 or 3 things, sometimes this could get you that finishing blow by chaining it to 2 or 3 things in order to get to them. So it's multi-purpose. It's a very
Gotcha.
good card in here.
Disenchant. It's for the artifact 8, right? Let's just
Enough said. Yeah,
get that stuff out of here.
always good. And Chantress is getting bigger. More people are playing her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like you said, Battle Mage is a thing. Some people run 2 copies. I run 1 copy just because you're wanting the game to go long enough, or you don't want the game to go long enough that you need 2 of these.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's good to have just one in there.
Gotcha. And then the classic lightning bolt, just three
Just
damage,
like,
random.
mm-hmm.
It's pretty good.
And it has that random word in it. So if you have your, lucky charm, your mechanism out, you can hit whatever you want with this. And 3 damage is usually, like you said, most things that they get out there are going to be 2 or 3 power, and
Mm-hmm.
this will get rid of most things. A Bosk Troll, kobolds.
Yeah,
So
there we go.
lightning bolt's just good.
Yeah. Raised Dead. So because of Kythera, this is a good card, right?
Mm-hmm. So 4 mana is a little steep, um, but it has that 2 threshold, so it does what you want. It has that word random. I think I went down to 1 copy in my competitive deck, but 2 copies in this one just because it is a fun card to play when you can get it off. If you have especially that poisonous dagger and you get rid of some of their more problematic minions, I've had people drop, Pudge Butchers, Mountain Giants, those the Hydras that don't
Mm-hmm.
die unless it's lethal. If you can kill it easily with 1 point of damage off a Poisonous Dagger, and then next turn get it back out with a Raised Dead, um, yeah, it's just really good. So mostly, like you said, because it says random, so it fits with your synergy in there. So why not?
Yeah, why not? Why
Mhm.
not? So I will say, when I got this deck list from you, I looked at everything. I was like, okay, okay, okay. What the heck is going on with these sites? Please explain the madness.
So most of these sites are mostly the same in the competitive deck. I think
Okay.
I might have made a few switches here. Um, I went. Let me see. For the most part, they're the same. So these sites, we got Cloud City.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to have that extra movement. You're easily going to be able to do the 3 threshold in order to utilize it. In this deck, movement is going to be your best friend. So you can easily move Cloud City around and stop your opponent from placing sites and kind of lock them out. But more importantly, you can also use it to get your Spark Mage closer to them for free, or anything you have for free. Um, Cloud City is also a great way to get rid of large minions because, for those who don't know, um, when Cloud City moves, only things of normal size move with it. So if they have a mountain giant that's occupying a Cloud City and you move a Cloud City, exposing a void space, it banishes that large minion. So with Enchantress getting bigger, Cloud City is a great one to have out there for that reason too. But mostly for the movement. And then you have the towers in there just because they are the basic air site and it gives you that mana boost. Um, I
So,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Okay, I was about to ask why only one of each instead of like kind of trying to guarantee that mana ramp a little bit more.
So I used to have more in there. I used to have 2 or 3 copies, and in my episode that I did with the interview with Metroid Pikmin, where we did the avatar analysis with
Mm-hmm.
Spark Mage, he did give me some pointers, which kind of made me go down to 1 each. And basically, the points with that are that um, the towers are going to be great for that mana boost, but later on in the game, you're not going to be dropping sites. You're going to stop at maybe 4 or 5 sites. And so by the end of the game, you're not going to really be dropping sites to get that mana boost when you're going to need it early on when you are dropping these sites to start off the game. Say it's turn 1, turn 2, you're not going to be doing much of anything with that extra mana. Um, turn 1 or turn 2, you're not going to be casting too many things because you're going to want to save most of your stuff for being able to pop off multiple things in a turn.
Gotcha.
So turn 1, turn 2, you're not going to want to drop something where these mana boosts will benefit you enough to having multiples in them. So because of that, I dropped down to 1 each so that you have that basic site for the Atlantean Fate stuff. You get a little bit of that mana boost in case you need it. But yeah, you don't need them. You don't really need that benefit early on as much as you think you do.
Okay. Dome of Osiris.
So Dome of Osiris is just a great site. I mentioned this earlier. Because Spark Mage is wanting to play a lot more of the aggressive game,
Mm-hmm.
you're wanting your minions to attack and be aggressive and do a lot of that stuff. So you're not really wanting your minions to be able to block things most of the time because you want them to be there for damage.
Mm-hmm.
So Dome is just a way to have a site that the opponent can't attack. It's also great if you want to keep something safe on there and not be able to attack it. If you have a Cloud Spirit on there or a Grim Reaper on there that you want to utilize for something, you pop them on here. Now all of a sudden you can save your Cloud Spirit for that 3 moves away, last blow. You can save your Grim Reaper to be able to be used when it is most effectively used. So just a way to have a site that can't be attacked easily.
Gotcha. Question: if you could run 4 free cities and drop the dome, would you?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, Free City is a great one in this deck. Again, for those same reasons. It can be attacked, but it's going to be harder for the opponent
Right.
to attack it. It's a great way to line the front of your so not your back row, but you're going to usually want to put these in your second to back row.
Mm-hmm.
And that just gives the opponent something that they have to cross in order to get to sites that they can be able to attack easier. And especially, like I said, in this one, when you have something like the Wind Sylphs, it's kind of fun being able to push the opponent's avatar or their minions into Free City and get that extra 3 damage in there.
Yeah. Imperial Road and only 1.
So I did take. Oh no, I do have Imperial Road. I have 2 Imperial Roads in my more competitive deck. Imperial Road for me, and Justin will get on me about this one. He doesn't really like it in his. I like Imperial Road. I think it's fun. It's a great way to get that mana boost early on, and if you can play this, effectively, you can give yourself the mana boost without giving them the mana boost. So usually if they play their 3rd site and they don't have another site in hand by the time it moves to you, and you have 2 sites in hand, you drop this, it gives you that mana boost. It gets you the ability to pop off and do your thing even faster. So it's a fun one. That's one of those ones where, depending on your own personal feelings on it, you could probably swap it out for something else. But
I love Imperial Road.
It's fun, yeah.
I love it. Dude, I've been doing this thing where, like, I'll play an Imperial Road as my first site.
Mm.
And they're like, and I'm like, do it. I dare you. Put the thing next to me. And I'm playing Earth, Fire, Sorcerer. And so I'm like, do it. And I only do this if I have a boss troll in hand.
Mm-hmm.
And then I play an Earth site next to it, and then I play my boss troll, and I'm like, okay, so next turn I'm doing 3 damage to you if you don't have some kind of removal for this.
Yeah, it is fun to kind of give them that, like, are you gonna give me a site on my side to do something
Yeah.
with?
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Let
I
me
play
smack this around a little bit.
I play Imperial Road kind of for that same reason in my Enchantress deck because being able to have one of their sites on your side of the board usually is dangerous, but in an Enchantress deck, when you have those auras occupying it and you just keep swinging on your back row.
Yeah,
Um,
it could be brutal.
but yeah, this one is just mostly for the mana boost if you can utilize it in uh, a useful way.
Mm-hmm. What's up with the lighthouse? Is it just you need more air or
So
non
that's
gothic tower non?
that's one of the reasons. So Lighthouse,
Oh, I
I
know
didn't
why.
really,
I
yeah,
know why.
yep.
Because you
So
can't bury on it.
exactly,
That's what it is.
you don't think of like it.
No,
It's
you
right
didn't think.
there.
I wouldn't think about it.
It's
No.
right there until, but you don't really think about it until it's pointed out. And again, this is another one of those things that Justin had pointed out to me, that not only is it another air site, but yeah, you play this turn 1 or 2. Usually you want this turn 1 because if you do happen to get your Lucky Charms out there, or you want to, if you know that they're not running water,
Water. Yeah.
you can easily put this out there, and then you have a little bit. You can put that Kythera out there, or those Lucky Charms, or those daggers out there early when you have the mana to be able to afford to get them out earlier, because exactly that, you can't bury on this one. So it's
That's such a
mostly to
slap
keep
in the
your
face. Holy
yeah,
cow.
it's mostly to keep your stuff from being buried.
Gotcha.
If I have played against water decks where I'm just like, well, this site is not useful at all.
Yeah, but then you
It,
just
it
like mulligan it to the bottom and you just
yeah.
don't care. Yeah.
Mhm. But yeah, it's there as a kind of a way of keep your artifacts safe.
Gotcha. And so Mirror Room, great site. There's no
Just
question about it.
every deck.
Why, like, what are your targets with this? Is usually what I ask people.
Usually with this one, my biggest targets, if I know that I'm going to be moving closer to them and I want to keep my artifacts safe, I might copy a lighthouse so that I can blink or teleport my Spark Mage there and be able to keep my artifacts safe another turn. If you want more defense stuff, you can add another free city to your arsenal and keep your stuff safer. The more free cities you have out there, the harder it's going to be for them to attack your sites and decrease your life. You can also do the same thing with Dome, or if you want to just mess with their head, you can copy a Imperial Road and just really do some fun stuff with that. So,
Oh yeah,
and
I've
then
abused that before.
yeah. And then later on, you haven't really gotten to these ones yet, but the next one is Observatory. That's just great. Stacking top of your deck, you can easily copy an Observatory if you want to know what's going to be the next 3 cards that you draw. So those are usually the ones that I'm copying. Most of the time, I'm probably copying a free city or a lighthouse. Or if they have something that they want to use, I've copied like a smokestack, just because I'm not going to need the threshold, but it's great to be able to turn off their stuff.
Gotcha.
I've also copied a Quagmire just to stop their
Yeah.
avatar from running away from my avatar, because I want to be able to keep them close to me. So just an all-around good card. It's one of those put in every deck.
Yeah. So we'll skip Observatory. We kind of just discussed it. Sinkhole and Standing Stones. Maybe I understand the sinkhole, but the standing stones? You have so many spellcasters already.
Yeah. And this was mostly just because I didn't include, I took standing stones out in my competitive deck. This was just to have fun with putting it out there for more spellcasters, for Dream Quest to target your Cloud Spirits, your Princess, and your Reaper, and your Haunts are not going to be spellcasters. But if you have Dream Quest in your hand and you're stuck with, a Cloud Spirit in your hand, you can make it a spellcaster. You can do your thing. It was one of those, why not?
Yeah, fair enough. So, if we're doing fun, why don't we just do Occult Ritual on Standing Stones?
I thought about a Occult Ritual. I thought about adding a Occult Ritual in here, but the thing to keep in mind is would you rather have a lightning bolt or a thunderstorm than
That's
an occult
fair.
ritual?
That's fair.
And occult ritual is a lot of stuff that you have to line up, and you have to have all your spellcasters in that same spot. Your
Right.
spark mage, you're gonna want those things out there doing their thing, and it's dangerous to have all your stuff on one
Yeah.
site.
Right. Yeah.
So occult ritual seems like a really fun card, but I see it potentially being like a combo card in the future.
Yeah.
Um, Mostly because you don't want to stack all your stuff there. But if you can stack all your stuff in one spot, play occult ritual and combo off into something, that's gonna be fun.
Gotcha.
And then doubling back to sinkhole, like you said, yeah, it's just a good way of getting rid of problematic stuff. One of the biggest threats against Free City is smokestacks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it
Can you
just it
sinkhole smokestacks?
you can in certain instances. It's hard to pull off because it does turn off certain things. But if you're slick with certain things, you can.
Huh.
It's hard to do, but that's just one of the examples. It's also in there for other things to get rid of their free cities,
Right.
some of their other sites. But no, you're right. You can't like play it next to a smokestack because then it gets rid of that.
Right.
But I have had opportunities where you play a sinkhole and it kind of prevents them from earthquaking certain things because you're going to move that sinkhole closer to certain things.
Gotcha.
I think the biggest thing sinkhole is in here for is sometimes getting rid of their sinkholes if they're playing a roots deck, and
Gotcha.
sometimes inexperienced roots players will put a sinkhole out before they play their roots,
Mm-hmm.
which is always bad when you're playing a roots deck. You want to put your roots out before you play your sinkholes,
Right.
but if they do, you can get rid of their sinkholes with a sinkhole.
Gotcha. Just kind of abuse that a little bit.
Yeah, or if they try to sinkhole your free cities, you can try to get rid of
Right.
their sinkholes first.
So the watchtowers are just get rid of those stealth units. I don't want to see them. I
Mhm.
don't. Not in my house.
Yep. One of the biggest feels bad is when they infiltrate your headless haunt, and now they can use your guy against you or any of your stuff. Yeah, just get rid of stealth. We don't need it here. We're not
Gotcha.
benefiting from stealth, so it's another air site, and the force of the opponent to not be able to benefit off stealth. So
Gotcha. So we do have a sideboard here. I would like to get into it, but I have other questions that I want to, and we're kind of close to the end
yeah,
of that time.
I might have
So
talked a little bit longer. My
yeah,
apologies. So
yeah, no, it's all
mostly
good.
sideboard real quick. I haven't really updated it to keep up with current metagame stuff, but I'd say the biggest parts that you would probably want in a sideboard here would probably be more disenchants. They're always going to be good when you're going up against enchantresses. Grapple shots are going to be fun if you're playing against like a wolf deck and you really want to use that Grim Reaper or just get a surprise thing. Telekinesis is probably the biggest one in here if you're playing against a battle mage deck or another spark mage deck. Steal their artifacts, and then chain lightning is just another damage card. So
Gotcha. So just real quick before you leave, I just wanted to
yeah.
ask like a couple. We're gonna do some quick fire questions, and I'll let you go. Number one is how did you learn about sorcery? How'd you get into a sorcery? Like, did someone tell you? Did you just find out about it? Facebook link or something?
Surprisingly, I found out about sorcery in a Magic the Gathering subreddit. So
Oh,
I
okay.
was reading about Magic. Somebody had mentioned in there, hey, there's this other cool game that a lot of Magic people are kind of looking at because it's got that old school feel. It's a lot of that classic art. And I'm like, well, what is this? It sounds pretty neat. I clicked on it. I went down that rabbit hole, and
Didn't look back.
before you knew it, I was hooked. Yeah,
There we go.
it made me regret not seeing the game sooner because
Right.
if you were part of that Kickstarter phase, But no, I did get in. I did get in early enough that I was happy. So I think you read it.
I constantly, to this day, shoot myself in the foot because I was a fan of Team Covenant. We went way, way back now. Like, I used to play a game called Star Wars LCG.
Okay.
And they were a big fan of that. And so I had been following them from that since then. So I learned about Flesh and Blood from them. And then I had learned about sorcery, but I'd been playing Flesh and Blood. I was, no, I'm a Flesh and Blood guy. That's all I do. And so I let the Kickstarter go by me and all this stuff. And then two of my friends that were playing Flesh and Blood, and we kind of had some problems with our local scene with Flesh and Blood, so we had all left, or not left, but two of them had started playing Sorcery, and I was like,
Hmm.
all right, what's this game? And they're like, it's so good, you gotta play it. Like we're doing a like learn to play on Sunday, come down, play it. So me and my wife went down, and we were like in our church clothes, and we're just playing this game, and it was a ton of fun. I was like
Hmm.
immediately I went and bought the starter decks and just did not look back after that. I sold all my Flesh and Blood stuff. I have like one card from Flesh and Blood left.
So did you at least got the alpha precons?
No, I didn't. I don't have the
Oh
alpha
no.
precons. I have just the beta precons,
Okay.
and I want to play with those avatars, but at
Hmm.
the price
They're
point, I'm like
they're
I
very
just can't.
expensive, yeah.
I can't.
Well,
Um,
you got to thank your buddies then because they got you
yes.
into probably one of the coolest games that we've
Oh,
seen for
absolutely.
years. And I can't, I haven't really played Flesh and Blood at
Yeah.
all. That was
I
one that
honestly I don't recommend it at this point, but
I'm one of those guys that'll pretty much play anything if you hand me a
it is
deck and
fun.
some cards and teach me how to play it. But
You have to
I
be
almost got
very
into Flesh and Blood.
competitive. You have to
I've
be
heard,
very
yeah,
competitive. Yeah.
I've heard it's very very competitive. So, but welcome to sorcery.
Yeah. So I'll do two more questions if that's okay with you, and then
Sure.
we'll go out.
Hmm.
What's the main what's your favorite aspect of the game? It could be art, it could be the mechanics, it
Ooh,
could be something like
um,
that.
I think my favorite thing is that I mean, one, the art is, you can't just talk about sorcery without talking about the art. So
Yeah.
the fact that I was an art major
Oh,
back in
okay.
school, and so I just have this deep appreciation for art and artists and everything that
Hmm.
goes with that. So the fact that this game focuses a lot on not only the art but the interaction of the players and the community with artists is such a huge, it's turning the average person into an art enthusiast and an art someone who appreciates art.
Yeah.
So that aspect is a really big part of it, especially dedicating uh, putting so much dedication to keeping this game hand painted.
Right.
So the artist side of me really appreciates what they're doing with that. But gameplay wise, you see all these different card games, and it's just Magic, Flesh and Blood. All these ones are you're playing cards in the same field. It's just piles. You play cards down. You can play them however you want to. Sorcery was just really cool in the fact that you have this grid space, and I'm a fan of chess as well.
Yeah.
And so the fact that it feels like chess and Magic kind of had a baby a little bit,
Yeah.
it adds this three-dimensional aspect to this game that we have not seen, I don't think, ever in any game. And so the fact that
Hmm.
it brought something different, now it matters how you build this realm, the sites that you're playing. It makes the game feel so fresh and new, and it just completely feels like something that is a card game, but also is a board game. And I'm a fan of both, and so it combines kind of those two passions of mine.
And I'm gonna kind of cheat and clump these two together.
Okay.
What's your favorite artist, if you can choose
Ooh.
one? If not, we could do like a top five or top three. And then number two, favorite card, art wise, or just mechanic wise, or something that just like really was like, oh, okay, this is really interesting.
Hmm. Um, Artists, I don't think I could choose one. Uh,
Fair enough. Fair enough. They're
if I have
so
to
good.
do, oh yeah, and I'm probably gonna like look back later at this and be like, oh, I could have like mentioned this or that. I'm a fan of a lot of the artists. They're so talented. Um, when I look at art, I don't look at it as this artist is better than this one or that
Hmm.
one. I go
Absolutely.
off of what I connect with when I see it.
Hmm.
Other people connect to things differently. Some of the artists that I like the best, as far as my connection, I love Severin, and I'm
Hmm.
I'm never going to be able to pronounce her last name. Uh, I want to say like Finot or I always butcher it, but Severin. She's the French artist that we all know. She's the one who did the Cathir mechanism
Right.
and a handful of other cards. She is just so talented. I mean, she has some of the most intricately detailed
Yeah.
cards out there. So she's definitely out there. I also I love Drew Tucker's art because it has this. like um, controlled chaos feel. He does a
Yeah.
lot of color theory
Hmm.
behind it, but it's just that it's got this messy sort of feel to it, but it's controlled in such a way that it just looks amazing. And then I would also say, oh man, you're having me limit. There's a few other ones too. I love Vincent's work because he does that oil, or
Vincent
not
Van
the
Penny. Yeah.
yeah, he does that like watercolor feel.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Truett Parrish is just such a young talent. He
Oh,
does a
dude,
lot of,
I love Crusade and Jihad so much. If I could get those signed by him, that would be
oh
like a
gosh.
huge thing.
I'm gonna fit two more in.
Okay.
Boss Troll.
Yes. Yes, I
Yeah, I
love
always forget.
it's like Vasily or something,
Vasily,
or
yes,
yeah.
Vasily.
Love his art.
He's so talented. I love him. And then last but not least, I would have to say UC Pilkus, the one who does Ghost
Yeah.
Ship
Yes.
and Battle
The
Mage.
amount of lines and stuff, it's insane.
It looks like a black light poster. I'd
Yeah.
say those would probably be my top five if I had to do top
Okay.
five.
Okay.
And then favorite artwork,
Or
I would
just card
say,
mechanic or something.
uh,
I know it's not Chaos Twister, so
I, as far as the artwork goes and the cards, I love the meme aspect of Pudge Butcher.
yes.
It's just a meme card. I love that one. I
Dude,
also
I've seen
collect.
your Discord with all of the Punch Butcher memes and the meme channel.
Yeah. So
Uh,
that's a favorite of mine. I also love Rest in Peace, because I love anything and everything spooky.
yeah, yeah.
So Elvira, she made this card, and it was one of the early ones where I got APs of it, and it's just got
Nice.
that spooky, creepy vibe. So I really love that one. As far as mechanics, that's we don't have enough time for me to even think of that one. I'll be prepared for that one. I
Fair
love I
enough.
love the things that you can utilize multiple ways though.
Right.
I love things that they have a mechanic that you can tell is going to be really, really good later when there's more things that you can do with it. So a lot of these cards that deal with like random, like discarding, the season cell sword, stuff like
Hmm.
that, where you can discard, or what's the other one? The Oh my gosh, it's the red one that you can discard a card instead of playing it. I know all these names too, but I'm
Oh,
on the spot now.
it's like mercenaries or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So the mercenaries one, you can discard a card, things like that, with very creative mechanics that you don't really see why they're good until something comes out and you're like, oh wow, this, with
Yeah,
this card.
changes it all.
So
Yeah.
I love that stuff. We did see it with like kobolds,
Hmm.
being able to use kobolds for creative things. It has that mechanic that you can do
Right.
a lot of things with it. So while I don't have exact detail,
Yeah.
exact examples off the top of my head, I'd say, cards like that where you can cheat things out or do something that just completely surprises people. I love cheating out big things, so
Yeah.
stuff like
I
that.
think I think one of my favorites that kind of is in that same vein is like self-same simulacrum, like doing the
Mhm.
cloning thing and like
And that has
uh
beautiful art
dude,
as well.
my friend used it. So I played King of the Realm and I put it
Mm.
too far forward and he freaking self-same simulacrumed it and he's like, I'm gonna take in all your mortals. I'm like, oh no.
Oh,
That's so bad.
self same isn't immortal, huh?
No, it's not.
Yeah, so it doesn't yeah, it gets around that. Yeah. Self same is another one that has that mechanic that you could just use it for anything. I mean, it's a
Yeah,
clone
it's
card.
abusive.
Yeah. So Magic
Awesome.
Magic has those, and it's like one of those they
Right.
have to include that in sorcery. So
Right.
yeah,
Well, thank you for so much for coming on, and we'll have to do this again sometime. I love talking to you,
yeah.
and I
Thank you
hope
for having
the
me. I
mutual.
appreciate it.
I hope it's mutual. Um,
Of course, I would
think,
love.
yeah,
I'd love to have you on for. I just have so many things planned, but we will
fair
definitely
enough, dude.
find a way. We'll find an episode to get you on to the podcast.
Okay,
But
yeah,
yeah, you
totally.
were one of the early people to get me to show my face on something. So
Let's
thank
go.
you for the invite. I appreciate you reaching out to me, and yeah, we'll be. You're in my DMs now. We'll be in touch. We'll get you on an
Yeah, dude.
episode
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
So I
Awesome.
appreciate it. Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, thank you again so much. We'll talk to
Practice
you
that
later.
Spark Mage.
Yeah, I will try.
I want to hear success stories by the time you're on my podcast.
Okay, I will.